Hello, it's Anima Wisdoms here. Here's a compilation of the AITA stories from the ghostly doctor. I hope you enjoy them.
Am I the asshole for wanting revenge on my best friend for poisoning me? My best friend, 15, a girl I, 15, took into my home and trusted more than anything, poisoned me, and left me to die in a brothel. As I was about to die, the soul of Genju came to me, and I asked her for two things. Please get revenge and take care of my family. So, to give some context, I was the only daughter of the powerful and wealthy Feng Qingge, a prominent family of my country. Growing up, my father and grandfather showered me with love and care in the absence of my mother, who left when I was still a baby. My father never remarried, so this meant that I was the sole heir of the Feng Qingge. At times they spoiled me a bit, but they raised me to be kind, compassionate, and respectful to others. My father, Feng Xiao, the patriarch of my family, isn't just in charge of the Feng Qingge. He is also a general in the army. With pride and honor, he serves our country, named the Sun Glory Country. I was also engaged to Murong Yixuan. He is the third son of our king, Murong Bo. Murong Yixuan and I were introduced at a young age. As we grew up together, we developed a deep affection for each other. When our families saw this, they arranged for us to be engaged. I was set to marry him when I turned 18 years old. It pains me to think that he will one day marry her, thinking it's me. If only I hadn't taken her into my home and trusted her, I would still be alive and well planning my future with Murong Yixuan. You have to understand, I too was once fooled by her facade. Let me explain how I met Ruoyun. When I was a child, I came across an orphaned girl who seemed like she really needed some help. She was frail and sickly, so I took her in as my companion. She became my closest friend, and I saw her as my sister. We did everything together. We talked about everything, shared our deepest secrets, and grew up side by side. I trusted her more than anything. But I guess that wasn't the same for her. My kind, harmless-looking friend with her sweet exterior ended up betraying me in a way I could never imagine. She had only been playing the part of the agreeable, loyal companion while deceiving me and my family the entire time. I don't know what came over her, but one night, while we were just hanging out, she sabotaged me. Not only did she poison me, but she also scarred my face in the most painful way ever and sold me off to a brothel. The last words I remember hearing before losing consciousness were from her. From this moment on, I'm Feng Qingge, and Feng Qingge is me. I'm sure the fact that we look so much alike only made it easier for her to pull this off. The moment of my death ended up hitting me way harder than I thought it would. While I was dying alone, my identity was taken by her, this vicious, heartless, and malicious girl. Yes, I might have lost this battle, but the person currently inhabiting my body? Oh no, they weren't done yet, not by a long shot. Right when I was about to move on and ascend to the heavens, as one might say, I discovered my body was being inhabited by another soul. By this girl from another world named Feng Qingge. She's everything I'm not. Strong, strategic, smart, and yes, she can be pretty ruthless when the situation calls for it. Honestly, she's a total badass, and she's about to do what I couldn't do. Take down Ruoyun. What Ruoyun did to me completely broke me. I used to be someone who wouldn't hurt a fly and who saw the good in everyone I met. But now I'm filled with so much bitterness and hatred that I want her to pay for everything she's done. So I did what I had to do. I made Feng Qingge promise me something. I told her everything about my past, my once loving relationship with Ruoyun, who I saw as a sister, and the ultimate betrayal that left me shattered. Please expose her for the fraud that she is and make her suffer as I have suffered. Genju promised me she was going to make Ruoyun absolutely miserable before ending her life. However, Even with all the burning hatred in my heart, I can't bring myself to be completely cold when it comes to the people I love. That's why I made Feng Qingge promise me something else. She has to take care of my family. They'll never know what really happened to me, and I want her to love and care for them as I have always done. My relationship with my father and grandfather has always been strong. I love them deeply, and I know they love me just as much. I understand that seeking revenge through another person may not be the most noble way to handle things. But the hatred in my heart is just too much to ignore. I need this to happen so that I can finally get closure and rest in peace. So, what do you think? Am I the asshole for orchestrating a major revenge scheme on my ex-best friend through Feng Qingge while also making sure my family remains cared for and oblivious to the truth of my passing?
Am I the a-hole for wanting to be my best friend? I, 15 female, grew up as a poor orphan on the streets. I learned that in order to survive, you can only depend on yourself. Then one day some rich girl, named Feng Qingge, 15 female, took pity on me and took me in as charity. The more time we spent together, the more envious I became of her. She had everything: wealth, status, and a rich and handsome fiancé. Why couldn't I have been born into this family? It just wasn't fair. That's when I came up with this plan to become her. My parents abandoned me when I was a baby. They sold me off to the Poison Clan for a few coins to feed themselves. The Poison Clan is a clan that consists of people that live on the fringes of society. They have, of course, a lot of knowledge about poisons. If you anger them, they will quickly make you suffer the consequences. They take in babies and lace their milk with poison. If you can handle it, you get stronger and build immunity. If you don't, you die. It truly is a clan of survival of the fittest. By the time I was 6 years old, I was immune to most poisons and knew how to use them as no other. By this time, they had also realized that I had a pretty face and so sent me out to live on the streets to attract men, then poison them, and if they wanted the antidote, they had to pay. At first this worked really well, but after a few years, word must have spread around to stay away from little girls on the street. So that revenue dried up and the Poison Clan saw no use for me anymore, so they let me starve on the streets. This is how I grew up as a poor orphan barely scraping by on the streets of the Sun Glory country. From the alleyways, I watched them. The wealthy families of this country going about their day to day. As I have no money, no one to really turn to, but myself. I started to envy the children of those families. It just isn't fair that they were born with so much privilege, meanwhile I was scraping by on crumbs. I used my pretty face to let some of the older boys share a little of the bread they stole from the market. But the security around the market was tight and the guards would chase them down, and if they were caught they would either lose their hand or go to prison. We were nothing but a nuisance. Nobody cared about us. Nobody cared about me wandering the streets, and why would they? I had no future, no opportunities. In the eyes of the world, I was nothing. Just another nameless face in the crowd. That all changed when one day, one of the boys told me that there was a rich girl, from a prominent family, that looked a lot like me. They started joking that she was my sister and that they only needed one girl in the family, so they kicked me out. As always, I laughed along. But inside the wheels were turning and I wanted to see and meet this girl for myself. So I went to the shopping district and that is where I met Feng Qingge. At first I only wanted to see her from close by. So when I saw her, I snuck close. But her guards spotted me and started to point their swords at me. I understood at that moment that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I acted as if I got frightened and unwell from the swords pointing at me. Feng Qingge noticed me and the rest is history. She took me in, gave me a job as her personal maid and companion. In my eyes, Feng Qingge was naive, spoiled, and has had a very sheltered upbringing. She had no idea that out there on the streets, people slit each other's throat for an apple. She never had to fight to survive and sleep with one eye open. Because someone could take advantage of you if you let your guard down. She never had to worry about the basic things, such as food, clothes, and a roof over her head. All the food was prepared for her by the chef in the kitchen. The rooms were heated and her bed was made every day by the maids. Someone always helped her get dressed in the finest clothes. Her days were filled with reading and doing things leisurely. I soon learned that if I played my cards right, I wouldn't have to do anything. Feng Qingge believed and trusted me more than anyone. I realized that although she had all this wealth, she was very lonely. Because of her shyness and introvertness, she didn't have any close friends. So I became like a sister to her. Her closest confidant and companion. She shared everything with me, from the weird birthmark on her arm that was shaped like a phoenix, to what she talked about on her outings with the only other person she was close to, Murong Yixuan, her fiancé. She gushed about how kind and amazing he was. With a little probing I found out that he was the third son of the king, Murong of our Sun Glory country. When I heard this, I had to see him for myself, so I secretly watched them from afar the next time they met up. I had hoped he was ugly, but not only was he very handsome, he exuded authority. Why her? Why was she so lucky to have been born into this family and to have a handsome fiancé that was a prince? One day she will be a princess and I will most likely be on the streets again. Abandoned and forgotten. When I realized my bleak future, I realized I had to do something. This is when I began to plot my plan. My plan was foolproof and very meticulous. It took years of patience, strategy, and the ability to maintain my calm and false facade at all times. All I had to do was play the part, be nice, act trustworthy, and make her believe I was someone she could rely on completely. That wasn't difficult. But in order to accomplish this plan, I studied how she acted and what she liked and disliked. But I realized I couldn't do this on my own. I needed the help of the Poison Clan. I needed them to be on my beck and call. So I contacted them and they were eager to help me when I told them that I could one day become a princess. One night, when her father and grandfather were away and the few servants that were in the house went to sleep, I unleashed everything I had planned. I poisoned her with a deadly concoction that left her unconscious, weak, and unable to defend herself. Then, I took my knife and, without hesitation, disfigured her face, scarring it beyond recognition. I got a little carried away and all the envy and hatred I had felt for her the past couple of years came out. The poison I gave her would kill her slowly, so I needed to get rid of her. Someone from the Poison Clan suggested taking her to a brothel. The girls from the brothel that died at the hands of one of their clients always were buried in an unmarked grave nearby. I then, with the help of the Poison Clan, used makeup and dyed my hair to make it exactly like hers. I took her place, took her identity, and even stole her fiancé. I became Feng Qingge. I feel no remorse for what I've done. I did what I had to do to live a life of luxury. Feng Qingge was utterly useless, she had no ambitions, and all her status was wasted on her. Now that all of that is in my hands, I will make the most of it and make myself even more stronger and powerful than she could ever be. I'll also get rid of anyone who tries to stand in my way. My poisons are incredibly potent, even a tiny dose can take down anyone, and I'm not afraid to use them to my advantage. This is my time to shine, and I will eliminate anyone who threatens my newfound status. You might ask yourself how I'm able to fool her father and grandfather. Well, her grandfather is senile. He doesn't even know what day it is, or how to get home. He gets lost all the time. Her father is always busy. But if they start to suspect, it is very easy for me to poison them and make it look like they died of natural causes. But before that happens, I need to take control of the Feng clan. I will show them what I, Ruoyun, am capable of. So, here's the question, am I the a-hole for taking control of my own fate by seizing Feng Qingge's identity and life? I mean, I wasn't going to let a spoiled rich girl's potential go to waste while I was left to struggle on the streets. I did what I had to do to survive, so am I really in the wrong here?
Am I the a-hole for wanting to break off my engagement? I, 17 male, have been very confused for a while now. I used to love my fiancée, Feng Qingge, from the bottom of my heart. She was my soulmate. But as of late, those feelings have been missing. I don't know what happened, but the love I once had for her is gone. At first, I thought that these feelings would come back eventually. But then I met a mysterious woman in red, whose appearance reminded me of Feng Qingge, but who carries herself with confidence and grace. Would it be wrong to break off my engagement? Hello there, I'm Murong Yixuan, the third prince of the Sun Glory country, and this situation is honestly stressing me out. I could really use some outside perspective because I'm not sure how to handle it. A little about me, as I said before, I'm the third prince of the Sun Glory country and also I'm a strong cultivator. I have an awkward relationship with my family, but the people of my country recognize me for being responsible, kind, and courageous. Generally, I'm the one who gets things done when no one else can be bothered. So, I'm not just sitting around doing nothing. Even in my childhood, I was stronger than my peers and my brothers in a lot of things. My specialty was rapid cultivation and I was, and still am, able to cultivate better than people around me. But being the third son of the emperor still made me have a socially weaker position than my brothers. I'm obviously not going to be the crown prince because of my birth, but I also am not a man to be taken lightly. Even among my brothers, I am secretly more qualified and stronger than the both of them. Although I can win any one-on-one fight with my brothers, for the most part, I choose to lose on purpose. This is how I keep the peace in my family. Yet, because of this, I am still not being taken seriously. And to make things worse, my dad, the emperor, isn't exactly the fairest or most ethical person around. Both he and my brothers are very greedy for power, and they get really jealous of anyone who might threaten their positions. I've never liked how obsessed they are with power. It's like they're willing to trample over anyone who gets in their way just to hold onto it. Naturally, my calm and reserved personality didn't sit well with them, so I ended up being the black sheep of the family. I have mostly been sidelined, stuck doing cultivation missions or chasing after an ancient beast that popped up in the country while they scheme for the throne. But it doesn't really matter to me. As long as I can help the people of my country, I am satisfied. Besides, politics was never my strong suit anyway. It eventually got pretty lonely growing up. I didn't really have much of a life outside of doing my duties as the third prince. That has been my whole identity, and it sucked. But luckily, I then became friends with Feng Qingge. She's the daughter of Feng Xiao, the crown's most trusted general, from the loyal Feng family. They're very close with the emperor because of their military connections, so Feng Qingge and I basically grew up together. We've been childhood friends for as long as I can remember, and we've literally spent almost every moment together. Honestly, it's safe to say we have a really deep bond, and we just get each other on a level that's hard to explain. Over time, our families definitely noticed how close we were, and eventually, we were officially betrothed. Honestly, it felt like it was only a matter of time before we'd get married. When we were kids, Feng Qingge loved watching the peach blossoms bloom, so we'd go to the Peach Blossom Monastery together every year to see them. It became our little tradition. We'd go, enjoy the blossoms, and promise each other that we'd come back the next year. This year, I promised to take her again in March, when they'd be in full bloom. But I honestly love everything about Feng Qingge: beautiful face, her kindness, the way she'd light up a room just by walking into it. I was willing to do anything for her. She was, and maybe still is, the love of my life. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. A few months ago, I found myself facing one of the hardest decisions ever. Feng Qingge started changing, but I couldn't really figure out why. On the surface, she was still the same beauty, grace, and charm, but I just had this gut feeling something was off. She wasn't the Feng Qingge I had always known. Her kindness felt a little reserved, and there was this strange superficial edge to her that hadn't been there before. It's going to sound rude, but she wasn't that warm, glowing person I'd fallen for. Instead, this new version of her felt oddly dark, materialistic, and honestly, kind of uninteresting. And as much as I hate to admit it, I just wasn't feeling that deep connection we used to have anymore. Maybe I was losing interest after all. But then, the weirdest thing happened. I was out and about one day, just grabbing a meal at one of the restaurants, when I saw this woman in the distance. She was wearing a red dress and had a veil covering the lower half of her face, and something just shifted inside me. Her aura, her walk, the way she carried herself, it all reminded me of the old Feng Qingge. Like, the real Feng Qingge. My Qingge. I couldn't help myself. I had to get a better look, so I went over to her right away. And the closer I got, the more I felt this weird pull toward her. My brain kept making me think it was her, like somehow this was the version of Qingge I'd been missing. But at the same time, I knew it was absurd because my actual fiancée was back at home with her father. What on earth is going on? Anyway, my suspicions kicked into high gear when I got closer to her. She wasn't exactly like the real Feng Qingge, who would never wear red dresses or carry herself with this unusual air of self-importance. But the gaze in her eyes, it was exactly like hers. It was the one thing that had been missing from the Qingge I'd been seeing these past few months. To test it, I just blurted out something about our little tradition of seeing the peach blossoms. And, funny enough, she actually looked shaken. Like she knew what I was talking about. Like she remembered our promise. But just as I was about to dig deeper, some guy came out of nowhere, stepped in, and took her away before I could get anything else out of her. So, tell me, am I the a-hole for thinking this mysterious woman in red is more like Feng Qingge than the real deal herself? Or am I just looking for reasons to break it off with Feng Qingge because I'm not in love with her anymore? What should I do? Update. Hello there, I'm still unsure about what exactly happened in front of the restaurant the other day, but I can't stop thinking about the mysterious woman in red. At the same time, I've been feeling more and more repulsed by my fiancé. Well, ex-fiancé now. Yes, I've had the engagement annulled. I couldn't make it fully official just yet because Qingge's grandfather, the old head of the Feng clan, had gone missing. After he cultivated in seclusion. He wandered away. He'd been gone for a few days, and it was causing this whole situation and didn't want to cause stress to them. Though, I'll admit, the way I ended things with Qingge wasn't the most considerate. Instead of waiting for our formal family meeting, I decided to tell her directly. I just walked up to her and said that I wasn't in love anymore, and I've been unsure for a while now of how to tell her this. I told her I will always care for her deeply, but that I now see her as my sister. What I didn't tell her about was that the one thing that finally made me see the truth, that I wasn't in love anymore with her, was me meeting the mysterious woman in red. Her reaction? Honestly, it was what you'd expect from someone who's getting dumped. She begged me to reconsider, but I told her we'd be better off as friends. I wasn't about to drag this out any longer than it needed to be. The moment the elder Feng came back, I went straight to Qingge's father and told him about my decision to end things. He wasn't happy either, but it had to be done. I didn't see any point in causing more drama or heartache for anyone involved, so I made sure the breakup was finalized as quickly as possible. Edit. I'm writing this edit to clarify what happened in front of the restaurant while I was on a date with Feng Qingge. I happened to see a familiar face, the guy I'd noticed with the mysterious red-cloaked woman earlier, standing at a nearby stall buying food. Feeling curious and wanting to greet him, I approached. After a bit of small talk, I casually asked if his sister was near. He immediately got a little defensive about the question. I explained that I wanted to apologize again, properly, for my previous encounter with her. However, he assured me it wasn't necessary. As our conversation continued, he suddenly realized that the woman was waiting for the food he had purchased, so he hurried over to a nearby carriage parked in the street. Naturally, I followed him, hoping to catch another glimpse of the mysterious woman. I introduced myself again, but this time, the guy, Guanxi Lin, stood firmly in my way, blocking me from seeing her. I admit I was being a little pushy at this point, but I was about to let it go when Feng Qingge unexpectedly joined the conversation. Things took a turn when she started demanding to see who was inside the carriage. That's when the mysterious woman spoke, and Feng Qingge's behavior shifted from aggressive to outright rude. She even slapped Guanxi Lin across the face, which caught me off guard. This whole situation left me feeling incredibly repulsed by Feng Qingge's actions. It was uncomfortable and unnecessary, and I'm still processing the way everything escalated so quickly. Second edit. The mysterious woman didn't just let Feng Qingge slap her brother. She got out of the carriage and slapped Feng Qingge back in the face. She then led her brother away from the scene, saying that we were people of no relevance to them. That part stung. Second update. Hello there, sorry for not giving you any update for so long. A lot has gone down and things are a complete mess right now. Everyone's panicking and no one knows what's happening anymore. The whole situation is just absurd. So, remember the mysterious woman in red I talked about in my previous update and the main post? The one who reminded me more of Feng Qingge than Qingge herself? Well, guess what? She is the real Feng Qingge. Apparently, Feng Qingge's companion, Ruoyun, the one she took in and basically treated like family, had been impersonating her all along. Some sort of jealousy over the difference in social status, I'm told. The mysterious woman in red, or better yet, the real Feng Qingge came back to the mansion with the elder Feng in suit, ready to reveal her true identity. It didn't take long before Ruoyun was exposed and, in front of the entire Feng clan, executed for impersonating the rightful daughter and heir of the family. Feng Qingge had set up an even crueler punishment for her, but I really couldn't see her taint her hands with unnecessary bloodshed. So, I ended Ruoyun's life myself, using my cultivation technique to spare Qingge from the burden. So, here's where things stand right now. Feng clan is slowly trying to get back on its feet after the huge mess of having Ruoyun impersonate Feng Qingge. Even Qingge's father, the head of the clan, is confused and embarrassed about letting some bum fool him into thinking she was his real daughter. Thankfully, things are settling back to normal, or as close to normal as they can be after such a wild situation. The real Feng Qingge, the woman I love and was betrothed to, is back. I honestly hoped we could pick up where we left off and move forward with our relationship and future marriage. However, Feng Qingge doesn't seem to share my sentiments anymore. She says she doesn't feel the same love and affection for me and is actually fine with the annulment of our engagement and would like to keep it that way. But guys, I can't do that. I spent months trying to sort out my feelings for her and now I've realized I'm still completely smitten. She may be a bit different from the old Feng Qingge before she was impersonated, but she's stronger, prouder, and more grounded. Despite the months of separation, she's still the woman I've always loved. I can't let her go. I don't want to let her go. What should I do? How do I convince her to give me another chance?
Am I the a-hole for promising to get revenge? A girl named Feng Qingge was poisoned by her best friend. She was completely blindsided by this, and as she was dying, she prayed to the heavens. Her prayer was answered when I got isekai'd into her body. Now it is up to me to fulfill my promises to her, get revenge, and take care of her family. So, before I get into what's happening right now, let me give you some background. My name is Feng Qingge, and yeah, or maybe I should say I was, an assassin. Yes, you heard that right. In my past life, I was trained from a very young age to live and work as an assassin, starting pretty much as soon as I could walk. My training began long before I had any real self-awareness, and by the time I was 6, I was already better at it than most of my toddler peers who went through the same intense training. And when I say intense, I'm honestly downplaying it. Our training was borderline torturous, to the point that only the toughest kids could actually withstand it. But somehow, even as a small child, I showed a real knack for this lifestyle. I was growing and improving at a rate that most of the others around me could barely scratch the surface of. Eventually, by the time I had grown up enough, I was so strong and undefeated that the organization that took me in to train me as an assassin appointed me as their head, and I took charge of all their operation. From there, I was determined to elevate the organization to new heights, and I did. I started recruiting people from all sorts of backgrounds, with all kinds of skills, and eventually, we became one of the top secret organizations not only in my country but across the globe. We were feared, respected, and best of all, we were sought after by everyone who wanted to get something done, no matter how complicated. We did everything, from morally and ethically ambiguous tasks to straight up taking down corrupt and dishonorable people sitting on the top brass. But we prided ourselves on the fact that despite our dark past and our not-so-clean nature of work, we had a code. We never targeted innocent people or anyone unrelated to our line of work. I made sure of that. As the head of the organization, I enforced this rule strictly, and if anyone ever crossed that line, they faced consequences they'd never forget. That's how influential I was in my previous life. I wasn't just strong, I was relentless, crossing lines if it meant executing my plans perfectly. So, when I ended up in Feng Qingge's body and saw just how terrible her past and current situation were, I genuinely felt bad for her. But, if I'm being honest, a part of me also just wanted to dive in for the revenge. I wanted to see what would happen if I stirred things up a little. When I lost my life as the head of the secret organization, I woke up somewhere completely foreign, a place that looked like it was straight out of some historical drama. The worst part was that I woke up with a weird man beside me who was being exceptionally creepy with me. There was no way I was letting that slide, so I used every skill I had, quick reflexes, all that training, and I overpowered him quickly. But then I noticed something strange. Physically, I didn't feel like me at all. I felt like someone else, almost like I was sharing space with another person. And on top of that, I had this deep, aching pain that I recognized instantly was from being poisoned. It's the kind of thing you learn to pick up on when you've spent a lifetime as an assassin. So, after I dealt with the creepy guy, I found a mirror to get a sense of what was going on. And, to my surprise, I was in an unfamiliar body, with a face I didn't recognize and was wearing some ridiculously old-fashioned dress. Like, seriously, this was not something people wore in the modern world where I came from unless they were actors filming a historical movie. And if you added in the factor of the strange old room I was in, something straight out of a period drama, it was safe to assume that I had been transferred to a completely different time. What's worse was that my host's face was marred and scarred in the worst way possible. So, I did what I had to do. I summoned her and ordered her to tell me what was going on. That's when a beautiful but oddly sad woman appeared from within me and introduced herself as Feng Qingge, the daughter of the noble Feng family from the Sun Glory country. She was crying like a kid, but there was a bitterness in her face that spoke volumes. It was obvious she'd been through something awful and was in more pain than she let on. Still, I wasn't prepared for how tragic her story actually was. Feng Qingge was originally a very loved and spoiled daughter of the army general of the country and the current patriarch of the Feng family. From what she told me, she was very blessed and had never had to fight for survival or be in a position where she was at a disadvantage. Despite her privileged life, Qingge grew up with a kind and gentle heart, always eager to help those in need. She told me how, when she was young, she came across this very unfortunate and malnourished girl who looked like she needed some serious help. The girl introduced herself as Ruoyun and told Qingge how she had been trying to survive on the dangerous street of Sun Glory country all alone, without any family, loved ones, or security. Feng Qingge explained to me how her heart didn't allow her to abandon this little girl, despite being a little girl herself, and her high moral compass forced her to take her off the streets and into her own Feng mansion. For nearly a decade, the two girls were inseparable, growing up like sisters. Initially, Ruoyun was taken in as a maid for the mansion, but Qingge made sure she was treated far better than her role would suggest. In fact, Ruoyun was treated almost as well as Qingge herself. That's how much Qingge wanted to make her feel safe and accepted. They shared their lives, their secrets, or at least that's what Qingge had thought, and spent countless days together, as close as any sisters could be. Qingge then reached the most mind-bending, and frankly, very unfortunate part of her history. She told me that these scars she had on her face, which now belonged to me, were given to her by the very sister figure she trusted the most. She told me how Ruoyun had attacked her out of nowhere, at night, a few days ago, and poisoned her with some of the most deadly poisons found in the country. She also told me how before Qingge fully lost consciousness, the wicked woman slashed her face with a sharp knife and completely destroyed her face and, in turn, her identity. Ruoyun's plan, all this time, was to study Qingge and her life closely and strike when the time was right. Qingge told me that before she lost consciousness, Ruoyun told her she was going to sell her to a brothel and take over her place as the heir of the Feng clan. With Qingge now scarred, weak, and unrecognizable, Ruoyun knew that no one would believe her to be the real daughter of the prestigious Feng family. That is exactly what brought Feng Qingge, or rather, me into the situation with the strange man and the weird-looking room. Since I was now residing in Qingge's body, and her apparition was behind me, telling me the entire story, it was safe to assume that the woman had tragically lost her life and soul to the very potent poison, and I was put there in her stead. After letting me in on the entire thing, for the first time, Qingge's sorrow turned to fury, and she begged me to avenge her. I hadn't expected that shift. She'd been weeping for most of her story, but hearing her pain, her desperation, it was clear why she couldn't just let it go. After everything she'd been through, it was like this was her one final plea to set things right. She made me promise her two things. The first one is to get revenge by making Ruoyun suffer as she had suffered, and the second one was to free her family from Ruoyun's shackles and take care of them. With that, she transferred her remaining memories to me and finally disappeared. And that's how, ladies and gentlemen, we come to where I am right now, carrying both the weight of her wishes and the fragile state of her poisoned, weakened body. What I know is that my constitution is very strong. I know my own strength and resolve, and I will honor the promise I made to the one who was wronged so deeply. But a part of me keeps wondering, is this really the right thing to do? Wouldn't it be an overkill? Would I be a bad person if I went through with it? So, AITA for promising to get revenge on the woman who destroyed Feng Qingge's life, even though technically, none of this was ever mine to begin with? Update. Hey there, sorry for not keeping you updated about my process so far. So many things have happened, and I needed time to process everything first. Anyway, this is what has happened so far. Luckily, I was able to leave the brothel unnoticed by changing my clothes with the help of one of the kitchen staff employees. I gave her the dress I was wearing in return. She was really happy and said it was made from very high-quality fabrics. After escaping the brothel, so many things have happened in a span of a week, and unfortunately, I can't go into detail about every crazy thing that happened to me after leaving the city and going to the nearby forest. But let me give you a few short examples. I saved someone from drowning. Turns out someone stabbed him in the stomach. So I healed and protected him from a group of wolves as he was recovering. He is now my sworn brother. His name is Shilian Guan. I was able to gather a lot of herbs, and some of them are very rare. I would scale mountains just to get them. Anyway, at one point I even got chased by bears while picking herbs. I stumbled upon a big egg, which turned out to be a phoenix egg, and now I am its master. I met my first master, who taught me about what kind of cultivation body I have, and he opened my meridians. So now I can start to cultivate and become stronger. Anyway, people seem to constantly think I'm a guy. And so I will use this as my advantage. So, that's it for now. If more things happen, I will keep you guys updated. Edit. I've been reading your comments, and I understand that there are still a lot of questions surrounding what happened after I escaped the brothel. So, let me tell you. I was able to get myself familiar with this new world by pretending to be a beggar. This gave me some time to get myself adjusted to this world and come up with a plan. I realized that I needed to get herbs from the forest nearby to heal the poison that was still inside of me and to start treatment for the scars on my face. I wasn't going to completely get rid of them just yet. But every time I moved my face, it really hurt a lot. Anyway, I was able to leave the city because I pretended to know a kind stranger. I called after him, calling him brother-in-law, and told him that I was so glad to have finally found him. I embarrassedly clung to him. He understood that I needed his help getting out of the city. After we passed the city gate, he warned me that in the 9 volts forest there was danger lurking everywhere and that it was best not to go there. Then he left. But a little danger isn't going to keep me from gathering the herbs that I needed. I'm not afraid of anyone or anything. Edit 2. You guys wanted to also know how I figured out that the big egg was a phoenix egg. Well, let me tell you how I came into possession of the egg and what happened afterwards. As I said before, while gathering some rare herbs, I got chased by 2 bears. I ran for my life. And just as I had jumped into a tree, I looked back and I saw that the bears stopped chasing me and they were shaking with fear. Before them was this crater with an egg at the bottom. They ran off, and I decided to pick it up, to eat it. Just kidding. On my way back to where Shilian was, I fell into this underground cave, where I had to fight dozens of rats, and I also found a lake there that had a door at the bottom. Of course, curiosity got the better of me, and so I swam towards it. As I approached this door, it suddenly opened and I got pulled in. This made me cough up some blood, which got on the egg. Before I could process what was happening, the egg hatched and a cute giant talking baby was before me. He told me he was the great primordial ancient phoenix. He's just so cute. I can't stop pinching his cheeks. Edit 3. Okay, this is the last edit for this update. I saw some people asking about my master and my cultivation. So, let me explain. The first night in the forest, after healing my body from the poison that was still inside of me, I tried to start cultivating, but I realized that something was preventing me from absorbing spiritual energy. Turns out, I have a heavenly spirit body. I'm actually able to cultivate not only spiritual energy, but also heavenly energy. This makes my cultivation speed 10 times faster than the average person. This is what my new master, Chu Badian, explained to me. He was a ghost stuck in the underground cave I fell into. In exchange for making him my master, he used up his last energy to open up my heavenly spiritual meridians. I also received a very mysterious ring. It's a spatial ring with a whole other world inside there. In return, I, as his disciple, will work on accomplishing the 3 tasks he has given me. The first task he gave me was to go and reorganize the heavenly palace. The second task was to enter the 10,000 Swords grave and retrieve the azure wind blade. The third task is to look for any of his remaining family members and see if they are doing well. After he opened my heavenly spiritual meridians, I immediately went to retrieve the azure wind blade. So I can check that one off. As for the other 2 tasks, he never gave me a time frame for when I have to accomplish them. So for now, I will keep focusing my attention on fulfilling my promises to Feng Qingge. Maybe in a couple of years, I will update you guys about the progress of accomplishing these tasks. Second and final update, so, it finally happened. I fulfilled my promise of getting revenge on Ruoyun. Let me tell you, revenge is a dish best served cold. I took my time, and as I watched her from afar, I planned her downfall. By the time I was done with her, she was on her knees, completely humiliated in front of everyone. But first I needed money. I couldn't be a beggar when confronting Ruoyun. So I disguised myself with a mask to hide my scars and in male clothes. I started selling my medicine in auctions at the black market. When the organizers from the black market saw how awesome my pills and potions were, I became famous overnight. They started calling me the ghostly doctor, a mysterious figure in red who could create any potion and cure any ailment. My second phase of my plan was drawing the attention of Murong Yixuan. Without really revealing myself to him, I wanted him to start doubting the fake Feng Qingge and see her true character. It wasn't that hard to get his attention. He was immediately intrigued by me. I had fun messing with Ruoyun while they were on their dates. Like that one time, I covered her in a scent that attracted the swarm of bees towards her. You should have seen her screaming as she was trying to run away, and let's just say she got stunned more than a few times. Then there was the time I slapped her hard in the face, in public, after she was downright rude towards Xilian Guan. You see, we were driving through town when I had a craving for some soup. So Xilian stopped the carriage and went to a food cart nearby to get some. After some time he came back with the soup and told me he met with Murong Yixuan again. Before I could enjoy my food, Murong Yixuan called out to me from outside of the carriage. I didn't really want to be bothered now, as I was enjoying my soup. Luckily, Xilian told him, with a very firm voice, that there was no need to apologize to me again. I thought that was that. But then I heard Ruoyun demanding that I should come out of my carriage and greet them. I took this opportunity to edge her on. So I told her I didn't see any reason to come out of my carriage, as I didn't know them at all. When she heard my voice, she literally tried to climb into my carriage. Xilian stopped her, and that's when she slapped him. Well, I wasn't going to stand for this rude behavior, so I came out of the carriage and slapped her back hard in her face. Then I guided Xilian away, telling him not to bother with people that have no significance to us. Anyway, I knew that by revealing myself, she became very suspicious of me. So it was only a matter of time before she would send people from the Poison Clan after me. This gave us the chance to start the third phase of my plan: annihilate anyone associated with her. So when they attacked us, we went after the Poison Clan and destroyed their home base in one night. In the meantime, I also had an emotional reunion with Feng Qingge, or should I say, my grandfather. The man might be suffering from short-term memory loss, but he immediately recognized me. When I told him what had happened, he rushed home angrily to confront Ruoyun, but she was able to make him seem insane by poisoning him. After not hearing from him for 3 days, I went and snuck into the Feng Clan mansion. I found him chained to his bed. When I checked his health, that horrible woman had been poisoning him. If I had waited a day, he wouldn't have been alive anymore. So I took him with me as I escaped. This definitely pushed some of her buttons. She started using her influence to force her father, or rather, my father, into giving her complete control of the phone guards, including all of its manpower and security. But before she could fully execute her plan, my grandfather and I arrived at the mansion together, and I exposed her in front of everyone, including the emperor. And I didn't stop there, I humiliated her. When she began ranting about how much she despised me and hated pretending to be me, I slashed her face. I wanted to go further with her punishment, but Murong Yixuan stepped in and used his cultivation powers to end her life. I think he let her off too easily, honestly. Fortunately, after everything, things are finally calming down, and my father and grandfather are back to being the most affectionate and lovely people to me. My father is absolutely humiliated and livid at himself for believing Ruoyun's lies, but I'm slowly convincing him to forgive himself. I have also taken control of the phone guards and am now working towards making everyone stronger. This also includes my father and grandfather. I will fulfill my second promise to Feng Qingge by making sure that they will live to their fullest potential, helping them along the way with my vast knowledge in medicine and cultivation. So guys, here it is. The conclusion you've all been waiting for. The revenge is done, and I'm very sure Feng Qingge is looking down at me and smiling. Do I regret it? Not one bit, though I do wish Su Ruoyun had suffered more before her life was ended. Edit. Okay, I see I still need to clarify a couple of things concerning Murong Yixuan. You keep asking why he needed to apologize to me. And he really didn't have to. I met him for the first time in the inn me and Shilian were staying at. It seems that I reminded him of the Feng Qingge he knew. So he approached me, and after some small talk, I wanted to walk away and he tried to stop me. Shilian interfered, and that was that. He apologized, and I told him no hard feelings. So personally, I think it was just an excuse to approach me again. As for the second question, will I be resuming my engagement with him? Sorry to disappoint anyone that was hoping for this. But no, I will not. Although I recognize that the former Feng Qingge cared for him deeply, I myself do not hold these feelings for him. I was relieved when I overheard him ending the engagement with my father. He just simply isn't my type, and I want to have the freedom to explore this new world. Plus, who does he think he is, interrupting me when I was punishing Su Ruoyun? I never asked him to do that. My guess is that he became uncomfortable with the cruel side I was showing, and so he intervened. He still sees me as the Feng Qingge he once knew. A girl he has to protect, but that girl is gone, and in her place is me. I don't need his protection. If there are problems, I will take care of them myself. I one day hope to find a man that loves me for me and who will support me in my ambitions. But for now, I'm content with being single and forging my own path in the new world. Hello. Thank you for watching. Up next, AITA stories from Skip Beat. So stay tuned.